why it would suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel. There's an old saying among Imperial historians and battlefield scribes: there's loyal, there's really loyal, and then there are the Dark Angels. But for all their vaunted loyalty, secrecy, and knightly nobility, there's one question that refuses to die. Why would it suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel? Today, we'll dive into that question not merely as a punchline, but as a doorway into one of the richest, most labyrinthine histories in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. This is not just a story of a Space Marine chapter. This is a story of ancient betrayal, grim pride, monstrous beasts, hidden truths, and a brotherhood bound tighter than any chain, yet corroded from within by secrets and suspicion. To understand why it might indeed suck to become a Dark Angel, we have to go back 10,000 years and more to a world called Caliban. Caliban was not an idyllic place. Its forests were vast, dark, and deadly. Creatures prowled beneath the boughs that no ordinary man could stand against. Beasts twisted and mutated by the malignant touch of the nearby Eye of Terror. It was a place of eternal twilight beneath a canopy so dense that little sunlight pierced the gloom. Humanity existed there in pockets of feudal society, ruled by noble orders of knights whose castles loomed like mountain peaks above the forests. It was a world out of a medieval fable, except the monsters were horribly real. It was to this world that a child arrived one night in a crashing meteor. His name would become Lion L. Johnson, a Primarch, one of 20 superhuman sons scattered across the galaxy by forces far darker than any mortal mind could comprehend. He grew up feral, surviving alone in Caliban's forests, battling beasts that would make even hardened Astartes hesitate. By the time he was discovered by the Knights of the Order, led by a man named Luther, he had become a predator without equal. The Order took him in, named him Lion L. Johnson, the Lion, son of the forest. In the decades that followed, the Lion rose to leadership of the Order, proving himself a military genius and warrior of unmatched skill. Under his guidance, the Knights of Caliban systematically hunted down the monstrous beasts that terrorized their world. It was a brutal, methodical campaign of extermination, driven as much by the Lion's tactical brilliance as by his deep-seated need to impose order on chaos. Then the Emperor of Mankind arrived. The Great Crusade was sweeping across the galaxy, bringing thousands of human worlds into the fold of the Imperium. The Emperor met the Lion, saw his strength and cunning, and revealed to him the truth of his origins, that he was a Primarch, a demigod forged for conquest. The Lion pledged himself to his father's cause without hesitation. And so Caliban was absorbed into the Imperium, its techno-feudal culture rapidly overtaken by the marching step of Space Marine legions. The Dark Angels became the first legion, not merely the first to be created, but the template upon which others would be measured. They were vast in number, wielding a diverse arsenal and capable of fighting any kind of war. When the Lion took command, he transformed the Legion into a precise instrument of Imperial will. Under his leadership, the Dark Angels crushed alien empires, exterminated Xenos species, and imposed the Emperor's law upon rebellious human worlds. Yet from the beginning, there were tensions. Luther, once the Lion's closest companion and confidant, had been denied the full gift of Astartes' transformation due to his age. Instead, he was enhanced and elevated as a senior commander, but he was never quite the equal of a true Space Marine. As the Lion grew in power and stature, Luther felt himself cast into the shadows. Resentment, jealousy, and pride simmered beneath the surface. Throughout the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels fought on countless fronts. They earned a fearsome reputation, but they also began to reveal certain traits that would come to define them for millennia: secrecy, suspicion, and an almost pathological tendency to keep their own counsel. Even among their brother legions, they were seen as distant and enigmatic. And for good reason. The seeds of disaster were already sown. When the Horus heresy erupted, the Dark Angels were stationed far from the primary battlefields. Whether by design or by manipulation from Horus himself, The Lion and his legion were tied down in distant campaigns, unable to influence the initial tide of treachery sweeping through the Imperium. The Lion eventually recognized the scale of the betrayal and fought to return to Terra, but warp storms and the machinations of traitor forces delayed him time and again. By the time the Dark Angels made it back to Caliban, the heresy was over. Horus was dead. The Emperor was a shattered, dying god, entombed in the Golden Throne. And on Caliban, Luther had raised the banner of rebellion. While the Lion and the Dark Angels had been absent, Luther's bitterness had festered. He had come to believe that the Lion had abandoned him, that he and Caliban had been discarded in pursuit of the Lion's personal glory. When the Dark Angels returned, Caliban's planetary defenses opened fire on their fleet. The Lion was forced to order a bombardment of his own home world. The final confrontation between Luther and the Lion was cataclysmic. They fought deep within the bowels of Caliban's fortress monastery. In the duel's aftermath, the warp itself tore Caliban apart. Vast sections of the planet were obliterated, consumed by warp storms, leaving only fragments drifting in space. One of those fragments would become the Rock, the mobile fortress monastery of the Dark Angels. The Lion was gravely wounded, vanishing into a secret chamber within the Rock, where he would slumber in stasis for 10,000 years. Luther was captured, broken, his mind fractured by the realization of what he had done. And a great number of Dark Angels disappeared into the warp, emerging centuries later twisted and corrupted. These were the Fallen, the single greatest secret and shame of the Dark Angels. This is where the tragedy truly begins for anyone recruited into the chapter. Because from that moment onward, the Dark Angels have lived two lives. On the surface, they are noble warriors of the Imperium, still bearing the mantle of the First Legion. Beneath that, they are bound by an iron code of silence, driven by a single obsession to hunt down the fallen and cleanse their shame. No other chapter of Space Marines carries this burden in quite the same way. For a Dark Angel, loyalty is not enough. Absolute secrecy is demanded. Trust is rationed. Paranoia becomes a way of life. Even among themselves, the Dark Angels divide into circles of secrecy. The higher one rises, the more truths and horrors are revealed. New recruits, for instance, begin as simple battle brothers, aware only of the chapter's public mission. But as a Marine proves himself and earns the trust of his superiors, he might be brought into the inner circle, a clandestine network of brothers who know the terrible truth of the fallen. This inner circle operates almost as a secret society within the chapter. Its members interrogate, judge, and sometimes execute their own brethren if betrayal is suspected. This isn't rumor or propaganda. It's documented fact within the Dark Angel's own hidden records. And herein lies one reason why it would absolutely suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel. Imagine giving your life, your humanity, your entire existence to the service of the Emperor, only to realize that your greatest enemies might not be the traitors you fight across alien stars, but the secrets gnawing at the heart of your own chapter. And that your own brothers might someday drag you to an interrogation chamber because of something you accidentally saw or overheard. The structure of the Dark Angels as a chapter today reflects this dual nature. Like all chapters post Heresy, the Dark Angels were officially divided under the Codex Astartes, Robert Guilliman's grand plan to prevent any single legion from becoming powerful enough to threaten the Imperium. In theory, the Dark Angels were split into the traditional chapter organization of 10 companies, each with roughly 100 warriors, plus a command staff, veterans, support personnel, and so on. But in practice, the Dark Angels are something else entirely. Unlike many other chapters, they have retained a highly centralized command structure and close ties to their numerous successor chapters, collectively known as the Unforgiven. This vast brotherhood acts in concert under the quiet direction of the Dark Angels' leadership. Their communications, their deployments, their secrets, all flow back to the Rock and to the inner circle that controls it. In truth, the Dark Angels remain a legion in all but name. For a recruit, this means stepping into a labyrinth. Not only must you master the arts of war, endure brutal physical training, and face the horrors of alien combat, you must also be prepared for a lifetime of tests, suspicions, and coded orders whose true meanings are often hidden even from those who carry them out. Your life is not simply one of loyalty to the Imperium, but loyalty to secrets within secrets. Consider the specialized formations that define the Dark Angels. The Deathwing, the chapter's elite first company, fights in the heaviest of Terminator armor. Ancient suits often thousands of years old. Clad in bone-white ceramite, they are the anvil upon which the enemies of the Imperium are smashed. Deathwing warriors are not merely elite for their combat skill, they are elite because they are trusted with the chapter's deepest secrets. Only those who have proven themselves worthy of the inner circle may serve among them, because any Deathwing mission might suddenly shift from battling Xenos to capturing a fallen angel. Then there is the Ravenwing, the second company, masters of speed and rapid strikes. They ride sleek black bikes and grav speeders, darting around enemy flanks or diving deep into hostile territory. They are often the first to make contact with the fallen, tasked with hunting them down, tracking them through warp-tainted wilderness or across the ruins of ancient worlds. To be Ravenwing is to live on the edge, caught between the thrill of speed and the perpetual dread of discovering secrets too dangerous to speak aloud. The remaining companies of the Dark Angels form the chapter's backbone, fighting as conventional Space Marine forces, yet always shadowed by the possibility of being called into an operation they do not fully understand. A Dark Angel's life is one of discipline, but also of constant ritual. The chapter's monastic traditions are legendary. Vast halls lit by flickering candles, robed figures chanting litanies older than entire human civilizations, and endless ceremonies designed not only to honor the Emperor, but to bind the brothers to secrecy. Symbols abound. Winged swords, broken chains, sealed scrolls, all reminders of a burden they cannot share. Their fortress monastery, the Rock, is a symbol of this dual existence. Once the core of Caliban's fortress, it survived the planet's destruction, reforged into a void-faring citadel. Within its black stone walls lie corridors older than some stars, vaults brimming with relics, and chambers so secret that even many Dark Angels know nothing of them. There are cells in the Rock where prisoners have languished for centuries, perhaps even millennia. Rumor whispers that Luther himself, broken yet immortal, has been kept within the Rock's depths, visited occasionally by hooded figures who alone know the truth of his fate. The Watchers in the Dark, tiny hooded figures whose presence seems absurd amid giants of war, are another part of the Dark Angel's unique curse. These diminutive beings appear silently, offering cryptic gestures or bearing sacred relics at critical moments. They seem bound to the Dark Angel's destiny, yet nobody knows exactly what they are or whom they serve. Are they loyal guardians or silent jailers keeping secrets even from the Dark Angels themselves? A recruit might find himself glancing over his shoulder in the silent corridors of the Rock, half expecting to glimpse those tiny figures watching from the shadows. Equipment and war gear are another reason it might suck to be a Dark Angel. Not because their gear is inferior, but because it is ancient, sacred, and often as much a burden as a gift. Many of the Dark Angel's weapons and suits of armor are relics from the Great Crusade or even earlier. Carrying such artifacts demands ritual purification, endless recitation of litanies, and a weight of expectation that can crush even the strongest Marine. Imagine suiting up in armor once worn by a hero who fought beside the Emperor himself. Every scratch, every dent, every kill mark on its surface is a story of heroism and tragedy. A Dark Angel must live up to that legacy, and must be ready to die rather than let that relic fall into enemy hands. Should the unthinkable happen and a piece of sacred war gear be lost, the consequences can be catastrophic. Entire companies might be dispatched into the warp to recover a single sword, driven by the chapter's obsessive need to protect its legacy and its secrets. And then there's the matter of psychic powers. The Dark Angels maintain a cadre of librarians, powerful psychers who channel the warp's dangerous energies. Among the Dark Angels, librarians also bear the additional burden of probing minds, extracting secrets, and rooting out hidden treachery. It's said that even the boldest Dark Angel shivers when summoned before the Librarius, unsure whether he's about to receive a psychic blessing or an interrogation that leaves his soul raw and bleeding. So why would it suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel? Because for all their glory, the Dark Angels live under a shadow. Every mission, every ceremony, every brother beside you might conceal a hidden agenda. Your loyalty will be tested not only in the crucible of war, but in the silent halls of the rock, where whispers carry further than screams. Your soul might stand judged not by the Emperor's enemies, but by the stern gaze of your own brothers. And then there are the fallen angels. No discussion of the Dark Angels can avoid this spectre lurking behind their every action. The fallen are those Dark Angels who, during the tumult of the Horus heresy, turned against the Emperor and sided with Luther. When Caliban was torn apart, these traitors were scattered through the warp, hurled across time and space, some arriving centuries in the future, others only moments later. For the Dark Angels, this is the original sin that defines their existence. Other chapters fight chaos, battle aliens, and serve the Emperor with pure devotion. But the Dark Angels always carry the shame that their own brothers once betrayed the Imperium. Imagine being a newly recruited Astartes, molded into a warrior angel, only to learn that your true enemies might be your own gene brothers, lost across the stars. The burden of secrecy is immense. For the Dark Angels, the existence of the fallen is the deepest secret of all, known only to the inner circle. Lower-ranking brethren may spend centuries fighting loyally, never suspecting that part of their chapter's purpose is an endless manhunt for these traitors. And if one day a brother proves himself worthy enough, brave enough, devoted enough to be inducted into the inner circle, well, that's when the horror truly begins. Because being told the secret of the fallen is not a liberation, it is a new chain. Those who know can never again speak freely. They must carry the knowledge in silence. They must lie even to their closest brothers. They must be prepared to kill to protect the chapter's shame. And in some cases, they must be prepared to die if their loyalty is ever questioned. Picture this. You are a battle-hardened veteran, a sergeant, or even a captain. You've bled for the Imperium, won honors in war, and survived horrors that would break mortal men. Then one day, you're summoned into a dark chamber, its walls inscribed with ancient runes, guarded by robed figures who speak in whispers. You're told the truth, that the Dark Angels harbor a hidden wound, and that the chapter's true mission is to hunt down and capture the fallen. From that moment on, your world changes forever. You begin to see signs and signals where once there were none. Brothers speaking in code, sudden redeployments with no explanation, whole battlefields abandoned because someone whispered that a fallen angel might be nearby. Missions change mid-strike, transforming from planetary assaults into covert hunts. You start to understand why some of your fellow Dark Angels have that haunted look in their eyes. Even your own loyalty comes under scrutiny. Because once you know the truth, the chapter watches you more closely than ever. The librarians can pluck secrets from your mind if they suspect doubt. The chaplains stand ready to test your soul for the slightest hint of betrayal. And the worst part, the fallen themselves. Not all of the fallen are raging chaos champions brandishing demonic weapons. Some are quiet, sorrowful figures who claim they never truly turned. Some weep for the lion and insist that Luther deceived them. Others have been twisted by chaos beyond recognition. You might capture a fallen angel who speaks with your gene father's voice and weeps for forgiveness. Or you might fight one who curses the Emperor and calls you a blind fool for clinging to lies. How do you judge such a man? How do you balance justice against loyalty, truth against secrecy? For the Dark Angels, the answer is usually brutal and final. The captured fallen are taken to the Rock to be interrogated, tortured, and ultimately executed, unless the Primarch himself intervenes. For now, Lionel Johnson has returned. The Lion, ancient primarch of the First Legion, has reawakened after 10,000 years. His return has shaken the Dark Angels to their core. Some had begun to doubt he would ever come back. Others feared what judgment he might bring. Strangely, the Lion has shown a degree of mercy unthinkable in earlier ages. He believes that some of the fallen might still be saved, that some who followed Luther were never true servants of chaos and deserve a second chance. This is a radical idea, one that stirs hope and fear in equal measure among the inner circle. Some see the Lion's vision as a path to redemption. Others whisper that such mercy is dangerous, a crack in the iron discipline that has kept the Dark Angels together for 10 millennia. The Lion himself remains an enigma. Older, sterner, touched by strange powers gained during his centuries of slumber, he walks through hidden realms and emerges where he is needed most. His presence is both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Even his closest sons admit they do not fully understand their father's intentions. For a recruit, it means your fate lies in the hands of a legendary figure who may appear out of the shadows at any time, altering your destiny with a single word. Why would it suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel? Because your life becomes a maze of secrets, shadows, and silent battles. You may fight alongside brothers who will one day hunt you, or whom you may be ordered to hunt. You'll carry weapons older than worlds, bound by oaths older than empires. Your triumphs may be overshadowed by a single rumor that a fallen angel was seen in your sector. The burden of the Dark Angels is not merely to fight the enemies of humanity, it is to carry a guilt so immense that it has twisted their entire existence. To wear the green, black, and bone of the Dark Angels is to accept that your loyalty might one day be measured not by your victories, but by your silence, or by your willingness to kill a brother to keep the chapter's secrets safe. And so the Dark Angels endure. They stand as the First Legion, proud and mighty, their banners decorated with laurels of ancient victories. Their fortress monastery, the Rock, sails through the void, a massive asteroid fortress that once formed the heart of shattered Caliban. Within its labyrinthine tunnels lie vaults of secrets, crypts filled with relics older than memory, and chambers where the fate of traitors and loyalists alike is decided in shadows. The Rock is a place of contradictions. It is both a fortress and a tomb, a holy place and a prison. In one chamber, the Dark Angels plan the campaigns that will shape the Imperium's fate. In another, a single prisoner, Luther himself, sits in silence, the man who betrayed the Lion and plunged Caliban into war. And there are whispers of others who dwell deeper still, things not quite human, the Watchers in the Dark. These diminutive, hooded beings appear without warning, moving in absolute silence, guiding or protecting the Lion as they see fit. No one truly knows what they are or whose agenda they serve. For the average Dark Angel, the truth remains forever out of reach. Most Astartes in the chapter are not part of the inner circle and have no idea of the full burden carried by their leaders. They train, they fight, they bleed for the Emperor like any other Space Marine. Yet sometimes, the orders come down, sudden deployments, unexplained missions, targets that vanish into the warp, brothers who are quietly reassigned or simply disappear. The rumors are always there. You might wonder how a chapter can function under such secrecy. But the Dark Angels are masters of compartmentalization. Discipline, ritual, and absolute loyalty keep the machine running. In some ways, secrecy is their weapon as much as their plasma cannons or bolters. No enemy can exploit their hidden wounds if no one even knows where to look. And yet the obsession with secrecy exacts a terrible price. The Dark Angels have, more than once, sacrificed entire campaigns to pursue rumors of a fallen angel. They have withdrawn from battles that could have saved millions simply to maintain the silence around their shame. Other Imperial commanders have been left bewildered or furious, unable to understand why the Dark Angels suddenly abandon a fight. The chapter's reputation for secrecy has created a certain distance between them and other Imperial forces. Allies respect their prowess but do not entirely trust them. It would suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel because the very qualities that make you strong loyalty, courage, discipline are turned into shackles. You serve in a chapter where truth itself can be a death sentence, where your faith in your brothers may one day be tested to destruction, and where, despite all your heroism, you might die knowing the Imperium would rather keep your deeds hidden than celebrate your victories. One might think that with the Lion's return, things would grow clearer, but clarity is rarely the Dark Angel's way. The Lion now prowls the galaxy, striking at chaos wherever he finds it, guided by visions and secret knowledge. He has proven that he can appear anywhere, even in the midst of battle, to change the tide of war. He has fought and defeated horrors that would break even other Primarchs. His duel with Angron, the Red Angel, a Daemon Primarch wreathed in warp fury, stands as one of the most incredible acts of martial skill in recent history. The Lion stood against the tide of warp-spawned monstrosities and emerged victorious even as Angron's axe howled for blood. Few other beings alive could claim such a feat. But while the Lion wages his own war, he does not seek to rule. He does not organize grand crusades like Roboute Guilliman. He moves in shadows, dealing death to chaos champions and appearing when least expected. Sometimes he leads whole chapters of the Unforgiven. Sometimes he travels alone, vanishing into his strange forest paths that span reality and warp alike. This forest walking, a strange and supernatural gift, allows the Lion to traverse impossible distances unseen. Whole fleets might spend months trying to reach a war zone, while the Lion simply emerges from a hidden glade in the middle of the battlefield. It is a power wrapped in mystery, further deepening the awe and fear he inspires. So for a Dark Angel, the stakes are higher than ever. Your Primarch has returned, yet he is no less enigmatic than your chapter's secrets. One day, you might find yourself fighting beside the Lion himself, witnessing feats of legend. The next, you might be ordered into a silent war against your own brethren, hunting a fallen angel through warp-torn worlds. Why would it suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel? Because everything is bound in secrets. Because your purpose might not be the victory of the Imperium, but the silencing of truths that could shatter your chapter. Because even your Primarch carries secrets he will not share. Because your victories might be erased, your sacrifices hidden, your name forgotten. Yet despite all of this, the Dark Angels endure. They stand resolute, armored in myth and silence, wielding ancient weapons and ancient guilt. They are the Emperor's first legion, the Angels of Death, and they will never stop hunting the shadows that haunt them. In the end, to be a Dark Angel is to carry the weight of the past into every battle. It is to fight not only Xenos and heretics, but the ghosts of your own gene line. It is to serve under the watchful eyes of brothers who might one day have to judge you, and to know that everything you do may be swallowed in secrecy. So, why would it suck to be recruited as a Dark Angel? Because in the First Legion, loyalty is demanded, secrecy is absolute, and sometimes the enemy is not out there among the stars, but sitting beside you, wearing the same robes, the same armor, and the same haunted eyes.